Let's bring in Minmin Lo with the latest. Minmin.
Yes, we just got the verdict, guilty of all charges. The sentencing will be announced on a separate day, but yes, the maximum sentence could be life in prison, and Jimmy Lai will have up to 28 days to appeal the verdict. And just now in the courtroom, the judges were reading through some of the WhatsApp messages between him and his assistant, pointing to how his assistant had helped to set up meetings between Jimmy Lai and some senior U.S. officials, and pointed to how there was indisputable evidence and said that he had harbored intent to collude with foreign forces and so on. It was a very long readout of the concluding remarks, and the total verdict is over 800 pages long, I believe, and that will be made online later on so we can pour through the details. But yes, this is, of course, the conclusion of a landmark trial, a marathon trial that lasted over 150 days. And it's a very high-profile case because Jimmy Lai is a household name in Hong Kong. Many people know him as the founder of Apple Daily, once a now-defunct newspaper that was very pro-democracy. It often urged readers to take to the streets. It is known for its tabloid-style coverage of politics and of celebrity news as well. And he was one of the first to be charged under the national security law. After it was imposed by Beijing back in June 2020, he was arrested and charged in August of that year.
We were talking about how Western governments have been watching this case, this marathon trial, as you've been reporting, Minmin, for more than 150 days or so. You know, what likely might occur from this verdict now? You know, obviously we heard from President Trump. He's talked about, according to some reports, vowed to save Lai. You know, is this likely going to raise more tensions abroad?
Yeah, certainly. I think we'll have to watch closely what is the international reaction after this, you know, whether there will be more sanctions from the likes of the US and UK on Chinese officials, for example. We know that already after the imposition of the national security law, Trump, who was then president had halted the preferential treatment for Hong Kong and sanctioned some officials that cracked down on rights. And certainly President Trump has said that he raised this issue again when he recently met with President Xi in South Korea in October. So this could come up once again, maybe when the two presidents meet next year, could be part of the bargaining chip. It will be interesting to see whether China would be willing to give Trump a win by suspending the sentence on medical grounds, for example, in exchange for some other concessions, perhaps on trade or tariffs. But certainly this is all speculation at this point. We'll have to see what the international reaction is. But the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer had also said that it is a priority of his administration to secure the release of Jimmy Lai, and many international organizations have been appealing on humanitarian grounds and on medical grounds to release Jimmy Lai given the deterioration of his health. His family members saying that he suffers from heart palpitation and his health has been deteriorating. He's looked visibly thinner over the years.
And we are getting some lines now in terms of the time frame here. The hearing for the mitigation of Jimmy Lai's case is set for January 12th. So that date has been set for the hearing for that. Minmin, you talk about his health. You talk about really the significance of this. This case has largely been seen as sort of a test case of this national security law when it comes to freedom of press, when it comes to judicial independence here in the city. You know, what's the message it's going to send really to the international community with this case?
I mean, it was a clear verdict from the judges, and obviously it is sending a message that China is not going to tolerate any form of, you know, violation of the national security law, right? The sort of protests that we saw in 2019 and 2020. Obviously, here at this courthouse, you can see that around me there are many police officers just maintaining the security of this place, ensuring that there is no disturbances, no sort of large-scale gathering of people that could spiral out of control. And even when I was talking to some of the supporters who queued overnight to go into the courthouse, many of them were wearing masks or covering their faces with umbrellas, not very keen to show their face or speak to the media at all. And there's this sense of cautiousness that everybody is taking here, especially after Hong Kong suffered from that deadly fire as well. Soon after that fire, the National Security Office also warned people not to use that fire as a pretext to incite chaos in Hong Kong. So this city has seen a lot of changes. We have seen the closure of dozens of civil service groups. Of course, over the weekend as well, the Democratic Party also voted to dissolve itself. The former chairwoman, Emily Lau, announced that on Facebook, marking the end of an opposition party that has been operating since 1994, a party that has been very outspoken in pushing Beijing for democratic reforms and calling for universal suffrage in Hong Kong as well.